This program is part of the Move to Include initiative, made possible with support from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The Max and Helen Guernsey Charitable Foundation, in support of educational programming on statewide Iowa PBS.
Autism spectrum disorder affects how an individual processes information and interprets the world. As the prevalence of autism increases, so do efforts to understand and provide assistance to those affected by ASD. The Life Autistic series explores the successes and challenges of individuals at different life stages. My name is Tyler. Learn about my story and meet others on the spectrum, from the very young to the elderly, living the life autistic. When I walk barefoot, I take in the sensations of the earth, like the grass, rocks, and dirt, because when you walk barefoot, you actually receive positive energy from the ground, and it helps calm you down, and it relieves the stress of day-to-day life. My name's Tyler Leach. I'm 26 years old, and what I want people to know about me is that even though I have autism, I enjoy being around people and making new friends. My autism is high functioning, and while there are some times where some things might be a little difficult, I think it makes me who I am.
Tyler was diagnosed when he was 22 months old, and he was developing normally with his milestones, and all of a sudden I noticed that he wasn't talking anymore, wasn't even saying mama. I was devastated. He had occupational therapy, he had speech therapy. I just took advantage of what was out there and did a lot of networking, a lot of research, a lot of reading.
Some of the challenges that I have faced were difficulty being in areas with loud noise and a bit of anxiety. It took some resources, a lot of patience, and a lot of love, because back then I was very impatient with a lot of things, and I think there were some times where my family wasn't patient with the way my autism was either. So I think that by having the time to focus on what I needed and to learn from each other, I think it helped out a lot. I went to college at Des Moines Area Community College, or DMAC. I had a few doubts when some of my classes proved to be a little difficult, but I just put the time and effort into the studies and gave myself some pep talks so I can show myself that I can do it. I work at Wells Fargo in Des Moines as an operations processor. So I look at merchant applications, enter their data into our computer system.
Tyler's a great asset to us because the work can be repetitive, and that's what he really likes. So we'll be able to give him more volume of work to do just because we know that he'll be able to get the work done on time and accurately as well.
The Diverse Abilities Team Member Network is one that supports our team members with disabilities. Tyler engages in our team member network as a member, And so we'll have him invited into colleges or into other speaking environments, and he might be scared to death to do it, and he always says yes to the opportunity to be able to learn and grow.
I'd say I'm pretty independent. I cook meals and I do some cleaning on a regular basis. I am able to handle the laundry pretty well. I manage my budget. 7.
17.
27 for 3. My grandfather and I, we've played cribbage for a long time. In fact, it was cribbage playing with him that I learned how to count. Got a run of 4. So these are the ribbons and medals that I've won through Special Olympics. Special Olympics really means a lot to me because I get to meet new friends through the program and also get active. I also drive to and from places every day, and I never thought I was going to get my driver's license, let alone a permit. But I took the time and dedication into doing the driver's ed class, and it got me to where I am now. I'm a pretty social person. I enjoy going to church. I attend autism walks and events. I sometimes go to different sporting events on occasion. I hope to get my own place eventually, and I also want to try to get into the dating world, though it is a little nerve-wracking.
There is a fine line about a parent possibly having their own fear and holding their child back. I think everybody's different. I just knew that my son was going to have a life, and the best life he could have, and do as much as he could. And he is so passionate about being a role model and making a difference for other people with special needs. So I am very, very proud, and he's found his purpose. And it's just a beautiful thing. He looks at his autism as a gift, and I guess so do I, but I didn't always look at it that way.
My advice to people who have a loved one with autism is to check out the resources that are available to you, because they do help in the same way that they've helped me. And just take the time to learn about your loved one and be patient with them, because it's a big learning process. And when you take the time to learn about them, you might even learn something about yourself.
Goodbye, Courtney. Courtney, you want to strum the guitar?
And for a baby.
Good job, Courtney.
People will always ask you, even now as Courtney is 29, people will say, oh, and what does she do, or where does she work? And so we still, are explaining that she lives in a group home in our neighborhood and goes to a day program, and about her diagnosis. From where we started to where we are now, it's huge for her to be able to have those services and to have that full life and live independently in a group home. And for us, we're still kind of proud to be able to say that. Courtney had different traits of autism right from day one. And she was our firstborn, so we kept thinking, oh, maybe she'll get through this, or things will be a little bit different. She did not sleep. She never played appropriately with toys. When Courtney was 2, we realized she had taught herself to read, and she could read and spell everything. She could not communicate, could say a few words. She would list what things were. When Courtney was 20 months old, our second child was born, and slept through the night, liked to be held. Things were very different. And so at that point, we knew something was off with Courtney. And then when she was 3, she was formally diagnosed at the University of Iowa Child Psych at the Autism Clinic. After you receive the diagnosis, there's a time where you're going to go through some grieving, and that's because maybe the future that you had planned for the child is going to be a little bit different. And so you just have to remember that you aren't in this alone, but that you're really important, and so is your child. You know, when Courtney was young, she was very active. When she turned 14 and started having seizures, she also received an additional diagnosis of epilepsy. She did slow down. It wasn't really even a progression. It was just pretty quickly when seizures started and those medications. She is much more careful, much more slow.
Wait.
Oh, there you go.
She still gets excited and can be a little excitable, but it's pretty short-lived.
See it?
Wait.
Away. You ready? Here's the ball. Oh.
Courtney is the oldest of 3 in our family. She adores her siblings and they adore her as well. In high school, our son wrote an essay about how Courtney was his hero because she could face life always being positive with everything that she dealt with.
All right. So, storybook. What's it say?
Talkative.
Good girl.
When we started to think about possibly having Courtney moving out of our home, she was 23, and it was just a huge decision. It took about 2 years before we found a house where we could have a group home and felt that we could turn over the care to the staff of Christian Opportunity Center. She made the transition much easier than my husband and I. We still have her come home on weekends.
A carrot.
Carrot.
2.
They're just regular homes in neighborhoods. So to support these individuals, we wrap 24/7, 365-day-a-year care. I think Courtney has made gains. Yes, she has support and different things, but we all have support in our lives. Hers is just maybe a little bit more care.
All right, let me help. Good job, Courtney.
It's a blue diamond.
It's a blue diamond. You think so? Okay.
We can't understand really what she wants all the time, and she has to kind of like think it through. Like if we'll say, you know, what do you want? And she knows what she wants, but she's trying to process as to how to say it or how to show it. So I think sometimes that is a big challenge for her.
All right. Do you want carrots, cauliflower, or broccoli?
Broccoli.
Broccoli? All right. Show me what you want. Broccoli? All righty. It is broccoli we are going to have.
I think she enjoys riding the van because, like, she'll say music, so we listen to music in there, and she may giggle and laugh and smile and hear her talking.
Courtney, A, B, C, D, E, F, C, H.
So she goes to Easter Seals program Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. COC transports her from her home to that program.
So the official definition is a Life Club is a day program for adults with special needs. Courtney wears a helmet for her safety. Courtney is, she's contagious. When she's, saying kind of random phrases or she just smiles spontaneously, that is so contagious. Of course I love you. Sometimes where she's really active, some other times where she prefers to be a little bit more quiet. Courtney does have peers, friends that she interacts with every day. It typically is those peers and those friends approaching Courtney.
There. Good job, Courtney.
Just the understanding and kindness that they share with one another is always very inspiring to me. I think so many of our clients, they've had a lot of barriers in their life, things that they could have used as an excuse. But they're always working to improve their life. They're always working to do better.
We go on outings every day of the week into the community. Courtney does seem to enjoy going on outings, and I think it's important for her to have the experiences that she wants to have.
You hollow.
Yeah, it'll fit. Hello.
Hello.
You gonna bow? No. You gonna bow?
One thing that we know about disabilities is that people have the same wants, desires, and goals that people who don't have disabilities have, but they're often isolated from the community which they live in. And so we want to make sure that people have the opportunity to develop those social skills that allow them to better fit with the community that they're living with.
When Courtney was 6, I joined the Autism Society of Iowa. We have really started to move from autism awareness to autism acceptance, to accepting the employee with autism and giving them a chance at work, and the classmate, and the house in your neighborhood that is a group home that is full of adults with autism who also live their lives, and then also always embracing the family who's raising a child with autism.
I definitely think he knows he's different, but understanding what role autism plays in that is going to be a difficult conversation.
I don't think he necessarily feels bad about it or feels sorry for himself. Generally, he's a pretty happy-go-lucky kid.
Mm-hmm. Kids, even before a year, start to babble, and Brandon didn't even babble. He was just silent unless he cried. As he progressed, we still had no speech, and that was really kind of a huge red flag for us, was that he wasn't saying anything. No words, no sounds, nothing. In the meantime, we were having some more tantrums and really difficult behavior. He was difficult to take out in public. We kept adding therapies, and so we started with speech, and then we added OT, occupational therapy, and then we added feeding therapy, yes, and then we added the Children's Autism Project here. So for a time, he was essentially doing 4 different therapies. But there comes a time where we can't do it all anymore, and we have 2 other kids who are now in activities. Carter plays basketball, Jana does dance. And there's a lot of guilt where, am I doing enough? And trying to balance all 3 of them at the same time. Brandon is obsessed with Mario. Mario Brothers, Super Mario. He loves every Mario game, and that's been an interest of his for a really long time. And if we let Brandon, he would play video games all day, every day. And so we work on rotating different activities throughout our day so that he gets some time with the electronics, but then also has time to go outside or read or cut paper or some of the other things that he likes to do. Let's do some scooter. Does that sound like a plan? Yeah?
I can't take it anymore.
Oh, really? Is that rough?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh. Green scene?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's green scene?
It's kind of like a mix, right, with green and yellow?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We'll see. Middle school and high school are tough socially for anybody. And for him, the gap will get wider as kids start to be interested in movies and music and things like that, and interested in boys and girls, and he's not gonna have those interests. He's still gonna be playing Mario probably. And so friendship is really hard, and that's a concern I have for when he's an adult too.
Being the parent of a special needs child is a huge stress on day-to-day living.
Right.
Huge stress on relationships with ourselves, each other, with friends outside of our family, which makes us a very tight and close-knit family.
It does.
And there's a lot of love between the 5 of us, but it doesn't come without its challenges.
Yeah. Go hands. Oh! What color?
Green.
Green? I don't have any green. The Children's Autism Project here really, though, I mean, has changed our lives. I don't know where Brandon would be if we have not spent the past 5.5 years here.
Business acts. We'll ask for a break if someone is out.
Perfect. An area that Brandon really struggles with is understanding why people engage in social behavior, and especially why they engage in behavior that he doesn't like. So when Brandon hears a baby screaming in a public location, he will get frustrated and attempt to yell at the baby and tell it to stop crying. He doesn't understand that they're not out to get him. And so we do a lot of perspective taking on why is this person upset? How is your behavior impacting them? Brandon's pretty famous right now for saying it's no big deal whenever something happens, and that's something that we taught him to cope with those challenges. Every year I think we push Brandon on some phobia and some fear, and he always comes out on top.
You're going to lose.
Do you think you can do that with decimals? Let's go ahead and do this problem today, please. How do we say that first number? 32 and 1/10 times
8
tenths. Good job. All right. I am Brandon's general education teacher. He's in my classroom 80% of the time. 20% of the time he's in special education. He really loves math, anything on the computer. I could see him just continuing his love for computers and just being a whiz on the computer. He's a very good speller. He's a very good reader. It's the comprehension side of reading that is a little more difficult, especially as books are getting more challenging and there's a lot more inferring. But my expectations for him in the classroom are just like everyone else's, and he really rises to the challenge.
right here.
Okay.
Brandon is only in the special education classroom for 30 minutes of reading instruction and 30 minutes of social skills instruction, so to work on that social emotional behavior piece. He now is working on, over the last year, having a conversation and being able to start a conversation with his peers and to carry on the conversation, how to appropriately end it and not just get up and walk away or say, I'm done.
How do you write?
We're going to highlight. You got it. Thank you. Brandon's the only student I've ever had in 22 years to start from kindergarten through 5th grade. He's grown a lot from this little kiddo that didn't talk a whole lot, just trying to get him to work and stuff, and then to this guy who now he talks and he'll have a conversation with you and he'll ask you questions, greets you every morning. It'll be amazing to watch him over the next 7 years to see what he does for 6th through 12th grade.
Maybe 3, depending on the weather.
We know he's going to have limitations. We just don't know, obviously, what all those will be. And long term, what happens when we're gone? What will he do once we're not around anymore?
That also makes me emotional. That's what keeps me up at night, is what happens when we're gone. He has 2 amazing siblings, but that's a lot of pressure to put on a sibling too. So we want Brandon to be as independent as possible. Brandon has changed our lives, and he's had a huge impact on us, and I think we've both found a strength that we didn't know that we had. We just hope that by raising awareness and telling our story that people will just be a little more kind, that they will be a little bit more understanding for those who are different from them. And even though Brandon struggles with speech and he struggles with social skills, he wants the same things that we do. Sometimes it is really, really hard, but sometimes it's also just amazing, because I feel like we really have an idea of what's really important in life. And sometimes it's not all that superficial stuff. And if people could understand that, then I guess we've done our job.
Is it done? Yep, can you put the extra papers away?
When I think about Lynn and where he came from in his lifetime, autism
really didn't hit the maps before 1990 a whole lot. You didn't even hear about it. You hear that early intervention is so important. I wonder how much Lynn had that opportunity for those early interventions in rural Iowa clear back in the 40s and 50s. I think that's really important to think about, and how he has progressed in his life and the challenges that he has gone through, going many, many years without even being known that what his diagnosis was.
You want to put your light on? Okay. Come on. Good job. Yeah.
Lynn is 72 years old. He's very, very sweet, laid back, and easygoing. He's very affectionate. Lynn loves everything farming, from beans to combines to John Deere green. He loves it all.
Cow.
Yeah, very good, very good.
He also loves his morning coffee and his afternoon coffee.
How are you?
Lynn communicates verbally. Typically, he will communicate using 1 to 2 word phrases, and it is very scripted, so it's things that he's heard in his past or things of interest to him.
What about this guy?
Cow.
That's a cow, yeah. And what about this guy?
Hold on, look here. What's this?
What's
oink,
this?
oink, every day.
Oink, oink.
What's that?
What is it? It's a pig. Good job.
He can make requests for things that he wants or needs verbally, but typically staff just kind of know what he wants and can help him out. Sometimes he'll point, sometimes he'll lead staff to what he wants.
Good job.
Lynn grew up around farms with his family. His father unfortunately had passed away when he was young, and his mother was no longer able to care for him because his aggression was too significant. At that time, she had moved him into a facility in Story County, where he continued to display some aggressive behaviors that were very challenging, and the facility was not able to care for him the way that he needed.
Right there.
When Lynn came to us in 1995, and up until last year, he was able to be part of our vocational program on our farm. He really enjoyed that farm work, being that he grew up in a farm background. Last year, he was working when he would like to, or when he chose to work. Then he retired. I don't think he fully understands the concept of retirement, but it is pretty exciting to think about someone with autism starting from having a lot of aggression and not being very successful in a vocational setting to being independent and be able to retire as a neurotypical person would. Balance Autism provides a lot of different living opportunities for adults with autism. Lynn transitioned from our ICF ID program, which is our campus program, more intensive care, to our home and community-based services, which is in the community and less restrictive for him. Lynn was able to transition into that less restrictive environment because of the skills that he gained through living in our ICF facility. He decreased his aggressions to virtually nothing, and he's really just very independent. He does need a lot of cares with hygiene tasks and mobility because of his age. But other than that, he's very laid back and easygoing, so he was able to live in an environment where he has more freedom of choice.
So tell me what you want to buy. You want to buy milk?
Gee.
He said cheese. Yeah, that's good. You want us to buy milk?
Yeah.
Lynn has staffing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Staff really try to involve the individuals that we serve in every decision-making process that we have and every choice that they would have. With grocery shopping, he goes whenever he really wants. Typically, staff try to assist them with going grocery shopping once a week. And then when they're at the store, they follow a grocery list based off of a menu or whatever meals Lynn wants to eat for that week.
Careful.
Easy.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn, you want to say thank you?
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a good day, okay?
Guardianship is a challenge with Lynn's age and the fact that he has autism. What happens if he needs nursing home care? What nursing home is he going to go to? Who's going to provide that care for him?
Lynn is in his 70s. He has a guardian that's well in their 80s. This is not uncommon. It is so important that we have somebody set up as a successor for that guardianship. In that if something was to happen, it's not a fun conversation. Nobody wants to have these. If something was to happen to your guardian, you have to have somebody
lined up, ready to go to support your loved one.
When you have someone with autism, you typically think, we're going to work on these intensive maybe behavioral strategies to shape their behavior or change their behavior. And then also focusing on those communication skills and the social skills. A lot of people forget that there is actually a life being lived also. So that's really important to us that he is able to do those things. I think Lynn is an inspiration for anybody. At 72 years old, he's still very humble and laid back, and he's grown so much with decreasing his aggression to nothing. My advice for family and friends who have a loved one with autism would be to help get that intervention that they need, help them grow their social skills, find a communication system that works for them and they're able to communicate their wants and needs, and also just most importantly is help them live a fulfilling life.
Oh, Bob, I know.
When the two were born, they did everything on time, crawled, walked, rolled over. Everything was pretty much almost a week apart between the two. I can't even tell you when he really went downhill. All of a sudden it just seemed like Jack just was miserable. And that's what's hard. Your child is, you know, developing right along, and all of a sudden they just kind of go down. Jack is 3 years old. He loves to color, which is a new thing that he's just gotten into. He's starting to clap, which he never did before, and stomp his feet once in a while. There's certain songs that he really loves.
If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
When Jack was little, we couldn't even get him to sit. He would just run off and be crying. He didn't want to sit and do anything, didn't play with toys appropriately. And now, if you give him a reinforcer like his shaker, he'll sit. In my immediate family is my husband, Sean, and we have a 6-year-old Max. My oldest son, Max, is on the autism spectrum as well. And then Jack has a twin sister, Josie.
All done.
No, you're not all done.
Where he's at now is he loves school. For him to take the numbers 1 through 10, and they can be mixed up and he can line them up. A year ago, I wouldn't have thought he could do that.
Good for you. Jack is a kindergartner here at Northeast Elementary School, and he's in the general classroom, I would say about 80% of his day, and then he comes in here for a lot of intense one-on-one work with his goals right now. Jack right now is nonverbal, that's how I would classify him. He does have some words, but he's not using them to communicate so much as he's using them just to identify certain things around the room.
Pig, pig, pig,
Pig, pig. Jack's strengths right now in the classroom are his letters and numbers. He's really just fascinated by letters and numbers. It seems to be a characteristic of children with autism that they do like numbers because the order of numbers is never going to change. He is using a piece of assistive technology right now. He's had it for about 4 weeks. If you want a drink, tell me drink.
Drink, please, and thank you.
Good job, Jack. One of the biggest things that I would like to see for Jack is for him to have a way to communicate. Right now, he's not able to let us know, I'm hurt, or I'm sick, or I'm hungry, or I'm grumpy right now, just leave me alone. He doesn't have a way to say those things.
Jack has a one-on-one associate, which he needs because of the fact that he could run off at any point if somebody wasn't watching him. And still, he's not completely potty trained, so he needs help with that. Potty training is like my next goal that I would love to have done.
That's you!
Keep working on the speech. I've heard him say words. He said words at school, so I know he can speak. It's just getting it out of him. He's just a happier child, and the earlier you can start doing intervention, the better. That's been huge for Jack. When we started, I thought, oh, his goal was to get him to sit for 10 minutes without crying or running off. And then today you see him and he'll sit and do work. Safety is the biggest thing, especially for a child like Jack. And that's why we do swimming lessons, because we want to make sure that he's able, if he gets in a pool or gets into a pond or something, that he can get up and get back to the side, like if he fell off a dock or something, because that was my biggest fear.
I have had Jack on my roster for the last year and a half. When I first got him as an 8th grader, he was displaying some more negative behaviors, whereas he was maybe having some self-injurious behaviors. If he got upset, he would maybe hit his head a little bit. He had, we called them vocal aggressions.
You're okay. Hey.
Sometimes he would leave the area where he was supposed to be because something else was bothering him, or he wanted to just get out of work.
Jack, over here. Get your tray. It's okay. Get your tray. What animal? Yeah. Pig. You say it.
Pig. Pig.
We're working on him communicating more, so rather than the behaviors being the form of communication, we're having him use his augmentative alternative communication device to say what might be bothering him or ask for a break. I would describe him as low verbal. So he has the ability to speak, and we hear that often in little snippets or short little phrases or one-word answers.
Rabbit.
Pig.
Rabbit. Good trying, Jack.
But when it comes to having a conversation, that's something at this point in time, he still has a little bit of a wall in front of him that we need to help him jump over.
Hands down. Nice hands.
One of the things that Jack does communicatively is he reverses his sounds, or he'll put an initial sound at the end of a word. So saying fish is very hard for Jack. It sounds like shish, because he's not sure about exactly where to have proper mouth placement.
Fish.
Yes, there it was. You got your sounds. Good job, Jack.
Help.
Ooh, you forgot a
Can.
word. Can.
I would say Jack's area of strength is doing work tasks that are very repetitive, that have a clear answer.
1, 4.
14. High five. Good job.
3.
63. High five. Good job.
He needs to know, here's how I start it, here's exactly how I do it, and here's how I end it. You do see that no matter what abilities or disabilities the students have, they are teenagers, so they're going to have the same feelings that a neurotypical student might have. We also really hit up the living component, where we're working on hygiene or living skills. And one of the big living skills for Jack is making his lunch. So we're trying to help him understand it's your lunch. You need to be the one that makes it. Because as an adult, if he's hungry, I want him someday to be able to go to the kitchen and do it on his own. It's scary at times to think about that, but it's a skill that he needed to have last year. Where was this child as a 3-year-old, as a 7-year-old, as an 8th grader?
That going 8.
Everything that we do and all of the goals from here on out are very much aligned to what does Jack hope for himself in the future, what do parents hope for him in the future, and how can we meld those into applicable goals that will make a difference for him for the rest of his life.
Probably down the road when he's 18, 19, 20, if he's still, where he needs full-time care, what do you do? Is there places that he can live, that he can have help, where he can go out and get a job and come back and live somewhat independently? That's probably the biggest goal and the biggest fear.
I was in my 40s and I was single. I basically wanted to find somebody before I died, I didn't want to die lonely, so I ran across this person named Margot Mouse, and we started emailing back and forth. And about 10 years ago, this weekend, we had our first date, and I knew my life would be changed forever. My name is Mike Durdorf, and I am 54 years old, and I live in Grundy Center with my wife, Margot. She's an occupational therapist at Grundy County Memorial Hospital, and I have two stepsons on the autism spectrum. One is 21, and the other one will be 19 in July, and I'm autistic. I was diagnosed at the age of 4, and I couldn't go to school until I had to learn to talk. And this was back in 1969, when the ratio was 1 in 10,000. Hardly anybody knew what autism was, but I was one of those 10,000. Thankfully, I was able to start talking, and then I was able to go to kindergarten, and I was just integrated, and I graduated on time, and here I am today. I did speech therapy at the University of Iowa Hospitals and Clinics. So naturally, that's Hawkeye country out there. First down. I always have been a fan, and I always will be. Yes! Hawkeye football is probably my favorite. I can't go to football games or that because it's just too overwhelming for me. So just various situations, or if everybody's talking at one time, that kind of gets a little challenging too, and I may not react appropriately. I'm kind of a homebody in that regard. Another thing too is sudden change. That's something I'm not real comfortable with. I'm getting better at handling it, but it's still something I'm not real comfortable with. Getting married was obviously a big achievement. I'm very proud to be married and love my wife a ton.
Something I think that helps in our relationship is that inherently I also know what's going to stress him out. He likes the routines, and actually it's kind of a calming force in our household because I'm much more spontaneous. He's very steady in his demeanor, and so that really works well with the boys because they know that they can depend upon him. They both know that he would go to the ends of the earth for them.
I would say the successes I've had as a parent is I know what they're going through. Yeah, there's a couple steps here, so be careful. Both young men now are on the spectrum. Got it working?
Yep, it ran about 10 minutes ago, so it should run again.
Okay. It can be a challenge, but it's also very rewarding to see not only our relationship grow, but watching Alex and Drew grow more and more, not only physically, but socially and psychologically in that. It's just amazing to watch them grow up. I've been with Drew over half his life now. I didn't think we would be really that tight when we first started, but boy, we're pretty tight. It's time for the alphabet show, Boosie.
The reason why we can't do this interview actually in our home is because if we were trying to do this at home, it would be intermingled with Drew saying, shh, no talk, no talk, no talk is over. It's done, it's closed. You gonna draw it on your board?
This book.
That's one of your favorite things to draw. Oh, nice. So with Drew, a lot of things get to be closed if they're not what he wants. What about Cookie Monster? Sing it. He will have tantrums, meltdowns, those types of things. That's not to say that there aren't wonderful celebrations of the things that he can do. Oh, that's a good job singing. But I want to make sure that people understand that his world is markedly different from anybody else's. And my world, and thus Mike's, Alex's, and Grandma's, is totally different than anybody else's. You know, autism isn't just a diagnosis. It's not just this problem. It's not that problem. It really is, it totally overtakes your world. In some ways good, in some ways bad. Alex, who's now 21, he's a little bit higher functioning. So Alex sees this work ethic with Mike. I have a job, I go every day, this is what we do, you know, and it's worked out really well because he's been a really great role model.
I commute to Cedar Falls every day. I work at a place called Talk to Me Technologies, and it's about a 30-mile commute, about 40 minutes to get from home to work.
Talk to Me Technologies is a mid-sized company. What we do is provide speech devices for people with complex communication needs. Mike has been here about a year and a half now. Mike's position is manufacturing associate. His main key job responsibility is to disinfect the devices that we manufacture. He manufactures different components for our devices and then also general office duties as well. Mike is incredibly detail-oriented. He has a drive to do the best that he can and really helps us serve as many clients as we can just by being so meticulous in what he does. Really, the only accommodation that we have for him is he does have a door on his work area where he spends most of his time because sometimes the environment does get a little loud. So he can choose day to day or hour to hour if he needs to shut that door and have a little more quiet. Mike came to the company with goals set out, trying to help other people with the same diagnosis that he has in the autism community.
Makes me feel really good when I go home at night saying, hey, I helped another person gain their communication, and it makes me feel proud to be here. I am an autism advocate here in the state of Iowa, and I've been doing this since 2013. And my main goal right now is to talk to law enforcement people and safety people.
If you hear a child say, child with autism missing, I would check the water every single time.
And for businesses, because hiring autistic people, I feel, is a good idea, and not enough autistic people are employed, and there's a lot of talent in our community that hasn't been tapped into. And what I do is I talk to businesses about why hiring a person on the spectrum would be a good fit for their company. I think a common misnomer that people think about autism is they're not very smart, and that is not true. People get that idea because of the way we do things, but we're not worse or better, we just think differently.
Autism is Mike, a great dad, working, has a great job, goes to work every single day. Autism is my brother, who is beyond brilliant. However, with Drew, it's grieving the fact that he couldn't get his driver's license, that he's not gonna get married, that he's not gonna have kids. That is autism. Autism is anywhere in between. So it really is a spectrum.
If you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, because it's such a varying spectrum. And I kind of compare autism to snowflakes. No two people are exactly alike.
For me, I get asked, what's my identity? Being a college professor, working in the cattle industry, designing equipment. Autism is an important part of who I am. I wouldn't want to change it because I don't like the illogical way that most people think. But it's not my primary identity. I looked really terrible when I was 2 years old. Kids can look really bad. Then as you work with them, some kind of pull out of it, others don't. But you don't know until you start to work with them. And that's why early intervention is so important. And what I'm seeing as I travel around the country is we're doing a better job on the early intervention, but where we're really falling down is with the older kids, teaching job skills, driving. That's going to take longer because of the multitasking issue. I did 200 miles on dirt roads at my aunt's ranch, picking up the mail every day, which was 3 miles away, before I did traffic. A lot more practice in really safe places. When I was 4 years old, I was nonverbal, had all the symptoms of severe autism. I was fortunate to get into a really good early intervention program. lots of turn-taking games, teaching me language, teaching table manners. That was done in a much more structured way back in the 50s.
That I want to demonstrate is how you walk back by them to get them to come up in the chute.
If you've got 3-year-olds that are not talking, the worst thing you can do is just to wait. You got to start working with that kid now. I've seen too many situations where the diagnosis is holding fully verbal kids back because there's a tendency to baby them and they're not learning how to drive, they're not learning working skills. And very often today, I have grandparents come up to me and they discover they're on the autism spectrum when the kids get diagnosed. But those grandparents had decent jobs because they had paper routes at age 11, learned how to work. Social skills in my generation were taught in a much more structured way. In the 50s, we had sit-down meals. You were taught how to take turns in conversation, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of the older generation had jobs and kept their jobs. You see, a brain can be more thinking, or a brain can be more social-emotional, and a certain amount of this is just normal variation. And years ago, I said, who do you think made the first stone spear back in the caveman days? It wasn't the yakety-yaks around the campfire. It would have been somebody probably on the autism spectrum in the back of the cave trying to chip that rock and tie it to a stick. What you got to do with kids on the spectrum is stretch them. Stretch them just outside the comfort zone, but give them choices. Now, the way I got into the cattle industry is I was exposed to it when I was a teenager. I came from a non-ag background, and when the opportunity came up to visit my aunt's ranch, Mother gave me a choice. I could go for a week and come home if I hated it, or stay all summer. Not going wasn't one of the choices, but giving some choices of stretching activities. The other thing we cannot let these kids do is become recluses in their room. They get so anxious, they just don't want to come out of their room. Exercise will help on that. I do 100 sit-ups every night. But you've got to get them out doing things. And I've had parents say, oh, he got a job at a store and he's just blossoming. You see, a person on the spectrum has lots of memory. So let's compare to computer systems. So you got the cloud computing memory back here. Tons and tons of memory, but a really small chip. Working memory is a problem. And so anything that requires remembering a sequence of steps, like maybe doing the ice cream machine at McDonald's, pilot's checklist. And when I worked in a dairy, when I was a graduate student, they had a checklist on the wall on how to set up the dairy equipment, the milking machine equipment, and I would have been in a lot of trouble without that checklist. That's a real easy thing to do. Let's look at situations in the environment that can cause problems with people with autism, and that's lighting. Certain kinds of lighting flickers. I was just in a hotel room the other day that was completely horrible. It had chevron black and white stripes on the floor and compact fluorescent lights. And I could see the pattern on the floor going like this. Now, I tolerated it okay, but there are certain people where this would be completely awful. I have some sound sensitivity problems. One of the ways to help get over sound sensitivity is let the kid control it. All right, let's say he's afraid of the vacuum cleaner. Then let the kid turn it on and off. Let the kid control that vacuum cleaner, where they are controlling that sound. And then they can sometimes learn to tolerate it if they control it. I get asked all the time, should I tell the kid they have autism? If he's having a great time, I wouldn't bother telling them. And I'm seeing too many kids where their whole identity is autism. And they say, oh, I want to be an autism activist. And I explain to them, you will be a better activist if you can go out and excel in a job, maybe an engineering job, an art job, writing job, or something like that. And then you do the activist stuff. I always emphasize all the things I've done at work. And what I learned is I learned to sell my work. People thought I was weird. But when I showed them my drawings and my pictures, they looked at that and go, oh, you designed that? People on the spectrum usually are good at one thing, bad at something else. We need to be putting a lot more emphasis on building up the area of strength. Talking to the FFA and the 4-H students today just about some basic things about animal behavior. And one of the things I learned from animals was learning how to work. I was not a good student in high school, but I learned how to work in my school's horse barn. Big problem I'm seeing today is not learning work skills. Because I'm afraid that some of those kids today are just ending up getting addicted to video games, and they're not going anywhere. They're not becoming video game designers. If they were becoming great video game designers, I wouldn't be criticizing it, but that's not where they're going. And I'm seeing a really big problem on not learning working skills. How about walking dogs? How about church volunteer jobs? Find things in the neighborhood that the kid can do that's on a schedule outside the family. I was bullied in high school.
I got bullied in school. It was awful.
Fortunately, I was not bullied in elementary school.
Because Mrs. Deach, the third grade teacher, explained that I had a disability, but it wasn't a disability you could see, like having a wheelchair or crutches, and the other kids ought to be helping me.
So high school was a disaster, complete disaster of bullying. In elementary school, other kids like to do craft projects. So I had friends who shared interests. It's a really important thing, friends who shared interest. Then when I was in high school and I was still getting bullied, the only places I was not bullied was horseback riding, model rockets, and electronics. Again, that is shared interests. Really important to get kids maybe involved in band, the school play. It could be lots of different things. Being a woman in the feed yard industry was much harder than being autistic, way harder. Well, I don't do the bar scene. That's too socially complicated for me. Also, I can't hear. I've got some auditory processing problems, and with background noise, I can't hear. You know, I think what makes my life interesting and worthwhile is work.
Also, if you quickly walk back by them like that, they'll go forward.
I was very happy to have a lady come up to me in the airport last night and tell me that she'd read my books and looked at some of my videos and that it really helped her daughter. That's something that gives meaning to life.
This program is part of the Move to Include initiative, made possible with support from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The Max and Helen Guernsey Charitable Foundation, in support of educational programming on statewide Iowa PBS.